we? You are good to go.
Okay. My name is Romana Gonzalez. I am one of the migrant recruiters at Region 15. I want to talk to you a little bit about the migrant education program. Our program helps with the educational needs of migrant children who move with their families to harvest crops, to help with livestock, or to fish in some areas. We help the families with a lot of things, like a lot of services that we have. For example, we help them with clothing and school supplies, tutoring. We help them with a free school lunch program. We also include them and have them participate in the awesome summer programs that we put together. And we help them connect with health services in the community and many other resources. The program has, so we help children from the preschool age, and we have a Bright Beginning program, and that's for that age of children. And then we support the children in the middle, so from elementary all the way to high school. And for the guys, or for everybody that has maybe got discouraged, maybe dropped out of school for some reason, we have the OSY, the Out of School Youth Program. And through that, we help them get their GED, or if they're still within credits and they want to go back to school, then we help with that. The Migrant Education Program is a great resource to know about and help people. Right now, there's a lot of, we're having a hard time reaching out, but we're trying to make people aware through these meetings that we're having so that you can spread the word and help us reach out to those families. So we are the Migrant Education Program.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Romana. And our whole team is with Romana on this. It's our passion. We're here for the families. And so if your students or your students' families have recently done any type of agricultural work, please let us know, to contact us, ask us questions to see if they might qualify, and we'll get them those additional services. Okay, Elizabeth, I am going to hand the screen over to you.
Thank you, Romana. Thank you, Monica. Tonight's session was for our presenter to present to our parents to make sure that they get information on how to get motivated and to be part of their child's education. Currently, we have mainly school district personnel as well as our staff members. However, this is geared towards engaging parents, so we can take tips from both of those areas, and we can help our families and our parents, grandparents, the whole community join in on helping our children in their educational endeavors, okay? And right now we know that we're going through a tough time, so they're gonna need everything that AC is gonna say. So we need to enjoy this presentation by him. I'm going to read his bio because I don't wanna miss anything. And then if you have any questions about him, his life, and I'm sure he'll speak about some of that, be sure you can put it in the chat, or we can wait till the end when he finishes his presentation to ask any questions. AC is a first-generation American whose parents were immigrants from Guatemala and Peru. AC was raised by his single mother who spoke limited English, but instilled in him the lessons that hard work will always pay off in the end. Regardless of his parents' highest level of education, being only elementary education, AC made it a goal to pursue higher education. He holds a Bachelor's of Art from the University of Texas at Dallas, a Master's of Educational Leadership from Texas A&M Commerce. He is currently a doctoral candidate in higher education leadership from Texas A&M Commerce, and he seeks to earn his doctorate in the spring of 2021. AC is an author, educator, speaker, but more importantly, he's a father to a beautiful young lady named Isabella. AC The floor is yours.
All right, all right. Thank you, thank you. All right, so since we have school personnel, because the presentation's all in Spanish, that's what I was thinking I was going to give it to the parents. So I want to be able to, I mean, I don't want to lose the people who don't speak Spanish. So how would you like me to proceed with that?
Is it okay if you do it in English?
Okay, yeah, I can do it in English. I'm just saying the PowerPoint that I'm going to share, because I have some slides, some Google slides that I was going to share. It's all in Spanish, so, but I'll do the presentation in English. Is that good? Or Spanglish? What do you want?
Perfect.
Okay.
I mean, we're open to it. And
Okay.
Thank you, AC. Yes, our parents mainly speak Spanish.
Yeah.
And we were hoping to get more participation from our parents, but obviously it's more school district personnel.
Okay.
And we've invited school personnel as well. So at this time, you can, present it in English. It's better for,
Okay, so
for all.
let me present it, I guess, to you, in terms of the school district personnel, and how maybe you could, present it to your parents, okay? Because it was geared towards parents, so that's the thing. So I don't want to lose, some of the slides. Like I said, I don't want to lose that as I'm sharing it with you guys. Does that make sense?
Yeah, AC, and like we mentioned, this is also, we're recording it, and it's going to our Migrant Facebook page.
Okay.
So it's perfect if you do it in Spanglish, because they will go in there and watch you.
All right, very good, very good. All right, so let me go ahead and just share my screen. Can I? Very good. All right, can you guys see my screen? Yes, we're good. Okay, so one of the things that I focus on whenever I speak to parents and do parent programs is the importance that they have, right? As being a parent, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of low socioeconomic status, regardless of just like Elizabeth mentioned in my bio, both my parents, they immigrated to the United States illegally, illegally to the United States in the 1970s. And even with that, right, one of the things that I like to stress about parents, if you ask any, and most of the time that I work with parents, I work with Latino parents, but, if I work with parents of, who are minority parents or parents who come from places or ethnicities that have, been disenfranchised and just been underrepresented in higher ed, because that's where my passion lies, and wanting to make sure that students of color are able to be successful. But when I speak to them, I want to let them know that regardless of the lack of educational background, that what they do as parents is still important. And so that's not just, I don't just say that because I read it in a book. I don't just say that because, I studied it. I say that because I see that as a true testament of what my mom did in my life, And so again, the question that's always posed is, why did you come to the United States? When I'm working with, Hispanic parents who traditionally weren't born here in the United States. And I kid you not, 90% of the time, 95% of the time, the answer is the same: for a better opportunity and for a better job, And so I believe that our students know that. I believe that our students, they recognize that their parents, immigrated to this country or came to this country, and what they want is they want better opportunity. They want a better life. So even knowing all that, I think sometimes, parents, Latino parents can come with the mindset that, what, maybe what I do isn't that important because I can't help my son with his homework. I can't help my daughter, with how to get to college, so it's important that they realize that regardless of those things, right, that they may see as obstacles, it's important for them to know that, what they do is important. So I don't want to stay with the screen. I want to be able to see you as well. And I want you to be able to see me as well. So let me go ahead and pose this question. So if I was asking the question, why is education important? ¿Por qué es importante la educación? What do you think your parents would tell you? Why is education important?
One of the things I always share with districts, AC, I sat down with a family And the dad told me, they can take everything away from us. They can take away this house. They can take the car, everything, and deport us. But they won't take away what's in their mind, the education that they have gotten. And I'm giving that to my daughters. And it was so powerful. And I just share that all the time with our districts when we go out and we talk to districts about our program. That's one of the things that Elizabeth and Romana, the team shares.
Okay.
The importance of education to our families.
Okay.
That's what our parents are telling us.
Very good. So thank you, Monica. So Monica said, you can't take that away. You can strip a person of everything, but you can't strip them of their experience and their education. Very good. Anybody else? Now come with me, all right? Because I feed off energy. So
I want to share that when I know that this is something that my dad used to tell us, te abre el horizonte, you look, so the world becomes smaller by getting an education and knowing places, se abre el horizonte, right? So that's something that stayed with me.
All right, very good. Thank you, Romana.
My response would be to get a better job.
Okay.
To advance in whatever particular occupation that you're pursuing.
Very good, very good. So is there anybody else? I want to make sure that I give everybody an opportunity to respond. No, you guys are a tough group. Y'all ready to get off? No, I'm messing. All right, here we go. So you guys said, Monica said, you can't take it away, right? That's the power of education. No one can ever take that away, right? And that's so true. And it's important that not just education in the school setting, but think about experiences that you've gone through. Think about lessons that you've learned in life, right? I truly believe that life is the best teacher out of everything, not to knock my professor in college or not to knock my, high school algebra teacher, but the best professor is life. The best professor is experience. And so think about those lessons that you've learned. Like no one can ever take that away from you. Once you've experienced something and gone through something like that really changes you, that really transforms your life, you'll never be the same and no one can take that away from you. So that's the power of education, right? And if you think about it, the root word of education comes from the Latin word to draw out, right? It comes to draw out. So when I think about that, and I've shared this in trainings before, it's like, what is it that we're trying to draw out from our students? What is it that we're trying to draw out from our kids, right? Now I have a daughter, so I'm going to talk a lot about my daughter. I hope you guys don't mind, right? Like I'm a sociology professor at a community college here in Dallas, and I like saying that my daughter is like my little sociology experiment or whatnot. But I have a daughter, so in terms of education, right, even though I'm not her specific teacher, even though, she doesn't come to class with me, there's still things that I can teach her, right? There's still things that I can draw out from her. And so that's the power of education, right? You think about the social support that I provide for my kids or that you provide as parents, as uncles, as aunts, right? And so again, what you're doing is drawing out that potential. What you're doing is drawing out that gift. And that's the most beautiful thing about education. You can read something and you can be like, wow, this is what I want to do. Or you can watch a video and you can like, yo, this is what I want to do. Or you can be involved in a STEAM camp, or you can be involved in an engineering camp, robotic camp. And all of a sudden your life has changed because that's the power of education, the experience that it gives you. So I love that you said that, Monica. Now, the second thing was to open up the possibilities, right? The el horizonte, I'm saying it correctly, right? All right, so the horizonte, right? Just opening up the possibilities. And one of the middle schools that I worked at when I was an assistant principal, our motto was endless possibilities. Just understanding that when students walk into our building, the simple fact that they're in our school, the simple fact that they're on our campus lets them know that, hey, there's a world of endless possibilities for you, endless opportunities for you. So again, that's the beauty of education. But I can't negate what Elizabeth said too. You ask a college student, hey, why are you coming to school? And they'll say, better job, more money. In fact, sociology talks about the function, right? So there's a theory called functionalist theory. And in that theory, it talks about, okay, there's the manifest function. Well, manifest is what are you wanting to see? So when we look at education as an institution, what is it that you want to see? And most of the time students will say, I want a better job. That's what I want. You know, I want money. They don't come just for the knowledge. Like I always tell my students, I'm like, hey, y'all don't come to an 8 a.m. class just because I'm a cool teacher. You know, you come because this is the class that works best with your schedule. This is the class that allows you to, you know, take my, you know, a sociology credit or whatever, and then get to go to work. So students are motivated, right? Because I want to go to college because according to society, that's the step. That's the step that I had to take to be successful. That's the step that I have to take to earn a good job. And so I'm glad you said that, because I want to share this real cool statistic real quick. So this statistic says, so we talked about why is education important? Well, let's look at this. Okay. Now it's in Spanish, but we're going to make it work.
AC,
Yes.
we also had Robin share in the chat, and there is joy in learning.
There's joy in learning. All right, thank you, for sure. Can you see my joy as I'm speaking? Well, now you can't because you're seeing the screen, but yeah, for sure, there's joy in learning. There's joy. I mean, think about, for those of you who have kids, right? When you see your son or daughter learn something new, again, there's that joy, there's that excitement of them saying, hey, you know, I got it. But let's look at this statistic right here. En 2015, según el Departamento de Trabajo de los Estados Unidos, el 65% de los empleos que mantendremos en 10 años aún no se han creado. So what does that mean? That in 2015, there was a research that said, look, 65% of the jobs that are going to be in 2025 haven't even been created. And when you think about that, right, when you think about what's going on right now with the pandemic and how everything is kind of shifted digital, now companies are saying, hey, do we even need to bring our employees in? So what's going to happen to our students if they don't know how to, you know, work collaboratively on a computer screen? What's going to happen? So things are changing, right? Jobs are going to disappear in the next 5 to 10 years. I like telling my students, if you think about it, 10 years ago, there was no Uber. 10 years ago, there was no Spotify, right? I mean, do you guys still have those CDs? Like I spent like thousands and thousands of dollars on CDs. I'm so mad at myself. But anyways, so think about all the things that will be created in the next 5 to 10 years. So it's important for our students to be up to date, right? To be up to date. It's important for our parents to know that, hey, they got to get on it. Okay. And so let's just be real right now. Now, how many of you have heard where, you know, people have said, let's not worry about the students being behind because guess what? Everybody's going to be behind in September. You guys heard that? Yes, no? Okay. I can see a couple of heads. All right, very good. Maybe I need to make it where it's like the whole gallery. Okay, very good. All right, so you've seen that, right? And so I get that. I get the sentiment in that. I get in and not really, you know, I don't want to say that we worry, but I get that. I understand that there's a lot of pressure, right? And there's a lot of uncertainty, like how's it going to look when we go back, right? But in working with teachers these last couple of months, right? I was actually working at a school here in the Dallas area, elementary school. And so working with the bilingual department, what we noticed that here's one specific, you know, just statistic and data. Out of 65 fourth grade bilingual students, only 20 students were turning in work. So that's less than 50%. So you can't tell me that students aren't going to be behind. However, right, I also do some work with an affluent school district here in the Dallas area. And I can even say this for my daughter. My daughter goes to a good school district. The teachers, like every day they were emailing us like, yo, like we got it. They were emailing her mom. They were emailing me. I'm like, yo, we have it. Even the last week of school, they were emailing us. I'm like, yo, I'm like, Isabella, like, you still have work? And she was like, yeah, I do. So just a different type of culture. Do you see that? Because sometimes the culture is like, well, these kids aren't going to do it anyways. So why should I assign work? Or these parents don't even care anyways. So why should we assign work? You know, they're not going to do it anyways. They don't have Wi-Fi. So there's all these things. And so what I see with that, that's the disadvantage that coming from a low socioeconomic, you know, that's the disadvantages that get bigger and the gap gets bigger, the academic gap gets bigger. And so, because if you think about it, if you have students who come from homes where the parents can get tutoring, right? They can pay somebody $50 an hour to tutor. They're going to be fine. or if they have parents who are educated, right, like myself and my daughter's mom, and we're going to put in the work, or they have parents that are going to stay on top of it. But what happens to the student who doesn't have that? So it's so important that I'm glad that you guys are doing this program, because it is important that the parents understand that, man, I have a responsibility. Even if I don't understand how to get into IXL, even if I don't understand how to, work Google Classroom, it's my responsibility to make sure that my son, my daughter, when they get on a Zoom meeting, they're not jumping up and down. They're actually focused, because that happens too, right? You guys know that, right? That happens too. Like, they're on the Zoom meeting and they're playing and they're jumping and they're not paying attention to the teachers. So it's the parents' responsibility to say, hey, look, this is my expectation. All right. So y'all with me? We good? Good. Monica, good. Elizabeth, good. All right. Romana, good. All right. Very good. So let me share the screen again. And so let's talk about this. Let's talk about culture capital. All right. Culture capital. Has anybody ever heard of culture capital? Anybody? No? Anybody want to guess what it is?
Is it like a culture that's following each other?
Okay, that's good. That's a good answer, but
Am I close?
sort of. Sort of. We're gonna get to it. So, anybody else? Culture capital. Let's think about capital. All right. So when you think about capital, I'm not talking about the capital of Texas or the capital of the United States. When we think of when we think of capital, what else can it mean? You got to talk about it, Elizabeth. Yeah, money, Romana. You're right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, however, culture capital has nothing to do with money. Okay. So now let's talk about culture. All right. So you guys in the chat, give me one word. I want you guys, at least three of you ladies, to write one word that you associate with culture in the chat.
I was gonna guess, but.
Oh, you want to guess? Okay, go ahead. All right, tradition. All right, very good. Let's get about two more.
What you give, what values, beliefs you might maybe give to your family or your kids. Like, I don't know, Catholic maybe, or like we're Catholics, I'm gonna give that to my kids, being Catholic or being hard worker, or the importance of education. It goes down to my children.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Okay, so we have, very good, that's good. What you pass on, that's really good, okay? That's really good. All right, so we have tradition, we have schema, we have families, we have beliefs. Anybody else? Okay, so the way I defined it, right, in the slide, and it was in Spanish, so let me just translate it. Cultural capital has nothing to do with money, but cultural capital are the skills, the practices, the beliefs that you need. Listen to this, okay? This is the important part that I wish parents were on here, that you need, that students need in order to survive or thrive in society. See, you can either survive or thrive in society. Survive, okay, I just have to, work, I just obey the law and I'll be fine and I'll survive. But if I want to thrive, there's something different that I need to know that maybe my parents never taught me. So where do I get that? And so the perfect example that I can give you is the students that I have. So I teach at a community college. And traditionally, you guys know the statistics about students who attend a community college. There's students who, didn't have the funding to go to a traditional four-year college. Students who maybe they didn't perform well academically, because a community college has open access. That's one of the things that community colleges are applauded for, right? They pride themselves on being open access. So anybody can go to a community college. And so the reason I tell you that is because most of the time when I get students into my classroom and the first exam happens and they don't do well, first question I ask is, did you guys study? What are your study habits? And so we discussed that, right? We discussed, okay, maybe I didn't study, or I don't know, I studied like 20 minutes before the exam or whatever. And mind you, my exam is open note, okay? In fact, I said, if you take good notes, you'll be fine. And yet I still have students who don't perform well. And here's why. So then the question is, well, do you feel that high school adequately prepared you for the rigor of college? And again, okay, we're not talking about students who excel in high school. We're not talking about students who are, graduating with honors, top 10%. We're talking about students who, hey, there was no other option for me, so I'm going to community college. Okay. And you know what they say? A majority of them, that high school didn't prepare them for college. It didn't prepare them for to study. It didn't prepare them for time management, because now nobody's on their case, right? They don't have to go to class. Nobody's calling. There's not a truant attendance clerk calling and saying, hey, ¿sabes qué? Juan Carlos no fue a la escuela hoy. They don't have that. And so that's what I'm talking about. And so that's the perfect time to talk about cultural capital. That's the perfect time to talk about, hey, well, now you need another skill. You need to know about time management. Now you need to know, hey, what worked in high school is not going to work here. Now you need to know communication, communicating with your professor if something happens, because you know what, life happens. And so I want to share this story. There was a student who, man, great student, never missed class. Okay. However, he didn't do a paper, and I only assigned 2 papers in my class. So he didn't do a paper, but he was always in class, never really participated, but he didn't cause any issues, but this good kid, he was always there. And so we get to the end of the semester, and I want him to do well. I want him to earn a B or earn an A, but according to my syllabus, you can't miss an assignment. Like you miss an assignment, that's it, unless, extenuating circumstances or whatnot. And so I come to him after class, right about 2 weeks before, the semester is going to be over. And I said, hey man, what's going on, man? I said, you're here all the time, but you didn't do that paper, dude. And I said, if you would have done that paper, man, you would have earned an A. And you know what he told me? He said, I'm sorry, professor, but, it's just me, taking care of my younger sister. My mom's working, and it's just me taking care of my younger sister. So I was working so much that because I wanted to help pay for her 15th and all that. And so I just didn't do it. It's not because I didn't want to do it. It's just because, I didn't have the time. And I said, dude, if you would have just told me, I said, you'd been good. And I said, thank you for telling me. And so I let him do that. So why do I share that story? Because again, it's the importance of communication. There's some students, they don't even know about, just communicating. So, and that's a skill. That's also a skill that you have to know. So think about the people who make it in society. I'm not talking about surviving, because we know how to survive. I'm talking about thrive. It's the people who know how to communicate. It's the people who know, hey, I know it's okay to ask for help, right? It's not a weakness for me to ask for help. And in the Latino culture, y'all know that, right? You don't ask for help, especially like males, like men. Nah, even if we're like lost, forget that. Like, we know more than the GPS, and we don't ask for help, right? But it's changing that mentality and saying, look, in order to survive, because a lot of the students, they know what it takes. They know what it takes in terms of, okay, I'm going to do exactly what my dad did. I'm going to do exactly what my mom did. I know how it is to work in the fields. I know how it is to get a job at a factory. And you know what? And if you're happy with that, that's fine. I'm not saying that. But if you want more, it's going to require you to have different skills. If you want that accountant job, if you want that job as a lawyer, if you want that job as an entrepreneur, because, I get a lot of that now too. There's students who like, I'm just going to start my own business. That's fine. But you still need knowledge. You still need education. So don't just think just because you're going to start a business that you're going to be successful. There's still stuff that you need to know. Even if you go into a trade school to become a plumber, I always tell them that, hey, there was a time that I needed a plumber, and they were joking with me. They're like, well, don't you have a cousin that works as a plumber? I was like, no, I don't. Anyways, but I said, guys, you know that plumber charged me $250 for 15 minutes of work? And all he did was like just turn like a knob. I was like, are you serious? Like, I could have done that. And so anyways, I tell them that story because even if you want to be a plumber, like, you still need education, you still need knowledge. Okay. So again, culture capital, I think it's important for our parents to know that look, the skills that maybe they taught their kids, it's not going to be enough. Not in the 21st century. There's got to be more that they have to know. Okay. So let me go to the next slide. How's this? Are we good? Yes, no? Okay, Elizabeth says yes. Thank you, Elizabeth. I appreciate that. I'm going to keep going because of that thumbs up. Thank you. All right, so here we go. So there's culture, right? So when we talked about culture, you said schema, you said family, you said beliefs, right? And Monica, you talked about the things that your parents give you. So look at that, right? Culture is easily defined. We're going to keep it simple. Culture is easily defined in 3 words: practices, beliefs, and values, okay? So cultura, práctica, lo que practicas, tus creencias y tus valores. It's that simple, okay? And so that embodies so much, right? So you think about what you practice, right? Think about the things that you practice. Think about the things that you believe. Think about the things that you value. All right. All that creates your culture. Okay. In terms of practices, what music you listen to, in terms of how you greet people. Like, you know, if you're Latino, how you greet people, how you're expected to greet people most of the time, right? You're supposed to give them a kiss on the cheek, even if you don't know that person. Like, I'm still like terrified by like old ladies because they smell like mothballs and stuff. But my mom was like, you better say hi to her because te voy a pegar si no le dices, oh. I'm like, mom. Anyway, so there's those practices that are passed down from our family, right? And so that creates our culture, that creates who we are. And then our beliefs are our convictions. Those convictions we hold to be true. Those things that people can't just say, well, hey, I think this is that, and you just quickly jump ship. No, beliefs are convictions. And then you have your values. So value is what's important to you. What can you do without? So is it loyalty? Is it family? So you think about all these things, right? And that's the culture. So in terms of speaking of parents, think about, okay, ¿qué es lo que estás practicando en tu hogar? What is it that you're practicing at home? Right? What kind of beliefs are you sharing with your son, with your daughter? Right? Because your beliefs are displayed not so much by what you say, but by your actions, because your beliefs influence what you do. So I think it's so important that we touch on this, right? To touch on this culture piece, because it really affects how our students believe. If you think about growth and growth mindset and whatnot, it starts with what's been, given to them, right? What's been passed on to these students. So we talked about culture. Now let me share the next slide. All right. So what I put right here is like lo que practicamos, creemos y valoramos se refleja en nuestras acciones y no solo en nuestras palabras. So many times, we have parents that will say, hey, well, I believe this, and it's just words. Can you guys agree with that? Right? It's just words like, yeah, we care about school, but they don't show up to anything. Yeah, we want our kids to do better, but they don't get on the Zoom meeting and get the opportunity to hear me. No, I'm playing. But it's not so much about what you say, it's about your actions. And so that's so important that we share with that, because again, it's the actions that speak. So if I was to tell a parent, all right, here we go. We want our students to be successful. Queremos que nuestro hijo tenga éxito. Bueno, lo más importante es involucrarte. It's to get involved. It's that simple, right? And we're going to talk about I'm going to talk about some research in terms of, because there's a myth, there's a lie, right? That, well, maybe I can't help because of my background, my educational background. I can't help because I don't understand the material. But those are myths, because we're going to talk about what's important. But the first thing, the most important thing, get involved, right? And so how do we get involved? Well, number one, la interacción con los maestros, the interaction with the teachers, okay? And that's so important. Studies will show that when there's a positive relationship between students and teachers, school and parents, students' success goes up. And so it's so important for our parents to know that they have, again, I want to use that word, responsibility to interact with the teachers, okay? So what do you think that does? I want to kind of give this over to you real quick. Why do you think it's important that our parents, that any parents, okay, interact with the teachers?
I'm going to share, I am a tutor at a middle school for newcomers, so ESL kids. And this is one of the things that I always talk to the parents, because I don't want the teachers to think that they don't care. I want them to know. And I always say, I'm there to connect you. I'm there to be, that person that can be in the middle. If you don't speak English, I'm there to communicate you. But I want them to know that even if they provide just a clean, place, time for the kids, books, things like that, but that the teachers know that they're involved parents, that they want the kids to succeed.
Okay, very good. That's awesome. I like that. You want them to make sure that they know that they do care. It's not that they don't care. They do care. That's great. That's great. You're gonna do this presentation with me next time, okay, Romana? Because that's perfect. That's exactly where I'm going. Anybody else?
She is great. She like the past couple of Zooms, she's been hitting it out of the park, Romana. But the other thing I like to say about Romana is she is also our Bright Beginning, which is a 3 and 4-year-old instructor. So she goes into the home, and one of the things that our program does is build that bridge between home and school, between, so if parents are afraid to, or like, well, they won't understand me if there's a language barrier, we help them with, we're that bridge. And so like Romana said, like she talks to her parents, like if you need someone, I can help translate. We can help translate documents. We can, but letting them know it's so important to have that communication with the teachers, and vice versa. Because on the other end, we also, when we talk to educators, we let them know the importance of also reaching out to the families.
For sure. Thank
I
you.
wanted to just mention, I was a high school math teacher, and then I was principal before moving to the service center. And one of the most impactful things that I ever did in my community, I live kind of in a small town, was participate in a program through, I think Title III must have funded it, because it's for our parents, it might have been Migrant, our parents that didn't speak any English and really didn't have that much of a connection to the school. We had them come like once a week, and they built scrapbooks for their kids, and they got books to read with their children in English and Spanish. And I went and participated. I don't speak Spanish, but I was there. I could be a friendly face and a helping hand, and it was one of those things that I did as a teacher that then later as a principal, I feel like I had some parents who were much more comfortable coming in and talking to me about things, and still get the little wave at the grocery store and their kids' graduation invitations, because we just made a connection. And so I think if we can ever get people to make those initial connections to families that they are not normally around, it just really closes some of those gaps for education.
For sure. Definitely. Thank you so much, Robin, for sharing that. Thank you. And so, yeah, you hit on that piece in terms of, hey, we want to make sure that the teachers know that our parents care. We want to make sure that they know that there's help available. And what Robin's saying, you're building that trust, you're building that connection. And so that's the important thing of just interacting. And so sometimes the interaction doesn't happen because there's this fear, right, that I won't be accepted. Like Romana said, there's this fear that, that no one's going to understand me, And so I always want to empower our parents, like, no, you're your son or daughter's greatest advocate. Like, no one's going to fight for your child like you, and you shouldn't put it on anybody else. So let me go ahead and share my screen and share a couple of things that research showed in terms of why the interaction with parents is so important. So, ¿por qué la interacción con los maestros es tan importante, right? So the first thing that research shows is that if there's no communication, the actions in the school, right, whatever happens in terms of how a student behaves, he or she behaves, they're going to suffer. Okay, so again, student success hinges on that communication piece being there, right? One of the things that I used to always love to say, not only as a teacher, but also as a principal, is like, look, we're in this together. Like, you want me to help your son, you want me to help your daughter, like we have to work together, because there's only so much that I can do. So if I can, build this bond and form this bond with a parent, then we got it, right? Because now you got 2 against 1. Like, now we got it. So, si no hay comunicación, the actions and when what happens in school of the son or daughter that's going to suffer. So the next thing is what Romana said right there. When there's communication, perceptions change, right? The perception changes. Because if you never hear from a parent, your initial thought's going to be, well, what? They don't care, right? And maybe that's not the case at all. Maybe they're working 2-3 jobs, right? Maybe they can't make time. Maybe, there's a lot of parents that, or dads, right? And not to, just be gender biased or anything like that, but there's a lot of dads who will travel out of town, right? So they're not even in the same city, for months. And so, well, I haven't heard from your dad. Well, because my dad's not here. And so there's all these things. And so, but once that communication, once that interaction is established, that's when perceptions change. Okay. And so I'm gonna tell a short story about that here. You know what? Let me just go into that story. So again, I have an 11-year-old daughter. She'll be in 6th grade next year. And here's why perceptions change. It's what I believe, right? Personal experience. So we received, actually we didn't receive anything. We saw on her progress report that her grade was like a 70 in reading, which is unacceptable, right? You know, because again, we want our daughter to do the best, and we know she can. So that's another thing. But so we reached out to the teacher. Her mom emailed the teacher first and said, hey, you know, what's going on? We just want to know how we can help Isabella. Okay, so there it is. Help Isabella. We didn't come like some, you know, angry parent, like you need to change that grade. It was nothing like that. Okay. So the teacher, yeah, and we waited, you know, 48 hours, 72 hours, because we know teachers get busy. So it's not even that. We're cognizant of that. Okay, because I'm an educator. My daughter's mom is an 8th grade English teacher. So we're educators. We know that sometimes things happen, but 3 days passed. We didn't hear anything. So I'm like, all right, you know what? It's my turn to email. So I email. And again, nice. I'm like, hey, you know, Ms. So-and-so, can you just tell me, you know, how we can help Isabella? You know, we noticed that her grade is low for us. I even typed on there, look, I'm not trying to get her for you to, you know, bump her grade up or anything like that. I just want to know what we need to do on our end, right? Because we care. There it is. We care. And I didn't hear anything. Okay. So now I'm not gonna lie, I'm getting kind of peeved, right? Because I'm like, hey, why isn't anybody emailing me back? So I emailed the principal. And that's one of the things that I wanted to share with the parents. And I hope the parents get this. That, again, you're your child's biggest advocate. If you don't get the answer that you want, or if you don't get a response from the teacher, then you have every right to go and talk to a principal. You have every right to go and talk to an assistant principal, every right to find somebody that's going to help you. Because many of the times, you know what happens? And I can say this because I've worked in education for 20 years and I know how Latino parents are. You know, they just won't say anything and they think it's going to get magically fixed. And guess what? Nothing gets magically fixed. So you have to be able to stand up and say something. So anyways, I emailed the principal and again, wait 2 days and no response. So a week and a half has passed. All right. And so I'm like, all right, if I don't hear from him on Friday, I'm going up there on Monday. And so sure enough, I didn't hear from him on Friday. So sure enough, I was there Monday. And so I go, and again, I'm cool. You know, again, I know how it is to be an administrator. You know, I'm all about being respectful. And he's like, he apologizes, says that, you know, the email must have gotten caught up in the filter. And that doesn't really jive with me because I just got an email from him, but it's okay. Like, I don't bring that up, but it changed the perception. Okay. And I'm just going to be frank and honest with you because I don't know any other way to be. But I truly believe this, that, you know, there's sometimes where people will see a last name that's a Latino last name, right? It's, you know, Martinez, Hernandez, Cristales, whatever. And they'll be like, well, it doesn't matter. We can just kind of ignore them. Well, you're not going to ignore me, you know? And it was in that moment where he even gave me his phone number. He's like, here's my personal cell number. You can call me anytime. Like, that's right. But I'm just saying it changes the perception and lets them know that you do care. And so I think it's so important that parents understand that look, you know, if you want, you know, your teachers or school personnel to know that you care, well, show up, get involved. Okay. So that the interaction with parents was number one. Let's look at the second thing. The second thing is the interaction with students. All right. So parents interacting with students. So let's look at that. Oh, yeah, even that. So let's look at this real quick before we go to the second point. So cuando hay comunicación, las percepciones de los estudiantes cambian. So even the student's perception changes, right? Even the student believes that, oh, wow, you know, my mom, my dad's actually saying something. So they must care, right? It's not like something that doesn't mean anything to them, you know? And so that's why it's so important that students see that, hey, you know, my mom is showing up, or my dad is showing up, or my dad is calling, or my mom is calling, you know? And because again, their perceptions will change as well. So let's look at the second thing, la interacción con sus hijos. So then so the first piece was like, look, your first part and helping your first part is being involved. Well, how do I get involved? Well, number one, you talk, you interact with the teachers. And number two, you interact with your kids, right? I mean, we have to, again, sometimes it's a cultural thing, right? Where like, no, you know, well, we just let them do whatever they want to do. Like, no, you interact, you get involved, you're intentional about being a part of your child's education. So here's my question that I would pose to them. ¿Qué expectativas con respecto a la educación tienes para tu hijo o hija? So let me ask you, you work with migrant students. What type of expectations do you feel that parents have for their students? What have you heard? If it's nothing, then we're really, really, really struggling.
I know Romana's probably feeling the same thing as I am of you want to give other people a chance to talk.
Okay.
Exactly. So we have a lot to say, but we're going to give the floor or the screen to others to talk. And maybe not even just our migrant students, but maybe if they have children of their own, if they want to share what their expectations of their children are.
All right, thank you. Very good, Monica.
I don't think, I think our parents growing up, I'm from South Texas, it was do your best. And that's what I've always told my son, do your best. And sometimes he says, you want me to be perfect. But I wanted him to do a good job. Not perfect, but to learn. The whole point was to be in school, get your education. Knowledge is power.
Definitely. Okay, thank you, Noemi. Anybody else?
I think with my children, I wanted them to do better. They have more, today than what we had, before. And just because maybe some of us didn't go to college, it's like, no, I want you to go to college. I expect for you to go. What I would tell my children, because I was a single parent, when I raised them, I said, you know what we went through. We worked out in the fields. I had 3 jobs for many years trying to raise my children. And I said, you saw what we went through and you need an education, and just trying to put that, when they were young, to know that nothing else was expected, that they needed to do better, and they did see that, and I think that opened their eyes to say, I don't want to go through what we went through as when we were young. What I want for my family is to do better. And I believe that a lot of our parents, my parents, my dad, he didn't believe in education.
Yeah.
Okay. And we were children, my family, my siblings, we were 10 and only 2 of us graduated, from high school because he didn't think it was that important. But, a lot of times that happens, but we have to look at that and say, you know what? No, I don't want to do that. I want to do better. And I think every day that's what we need to do. And that's what we need to expect from our children, not to expect less, but to push them, to have a good career, to do better with their lives. And that way, when they have their children, they can keep it going, because it is important. Education is important, and I mean, like they say, you have a good education, you're going to be getting paid better. You're not going to have to work as hard as the way we as parents did to try and make it. So, to me, it's like to encourage them to do better with their lives. That's what I see.
All right, thank you. And what's your name? Because it says Galaxy S9. I don't think I want to call you Galaxy S9. So.
My name is Aida Ramirez.
Aida Ramirez. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Hey, I had trouble. Yes.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. And so that leads me to this. Many times, I think the intrinsic motivation in terms of our kids nowadays, right, of our teenagers nowadays, you don't really see. You still have some that are intrinsically motivated, that they can see the struggle of their mom, they can see the struggle of their dad, and they can be like, look, I don't want to do that. That's part of my story, and I'm going to end with that when I get to my ending. But now, because of so many forces, right? And when I talk about forces, I'm talking about technology, I'm talking about peers, I'm talking about, social media, so many things just, vying for the attention of our kids. it's hard for them to really focus, right? Because it's like, all right, well, my mom and dad, they're busting their butt, but I have a $150 shoes or a $300 iPhone, right? So it's like, it's become like the disease of entitlement, right? Let's just be frank. And that's one of the things that I, you know, struggle with in terms of making sure that, and maybe struggle is a bad word, but I think I'm more intentional about making sure that I don't want my daughter to feel like she's entitled to anything, you know, even though she's been able to do certain things that at her age, I never did. Like she's been to Disney World like 3 times. Like first time I went to Disney World is because, you know, there was an Avid conference and I was a principal in charge of Avid and they sent me, I was like, yo, you know, so I was like 26 when I went to Disney World for the first time, but she's been able to do all these things. And so, but again, it's those it's that communication piece, right? That interaction says like, look, let me be honest with you. Yeah, I can give you this, but don't ever feel like you're entitled to this. Just know that there's been hard work that has allowed you to be able to have the things that you have, right? And so I think that's why it's so important in terms of our parents getting involved. It's not just buying things for our kids. Sometimes that's what they think. If I just buy my kid this, then he'll be okay. If I just give him this, give her this, then they'll be fine. And it's not that. You know, it's about spending time. It's about communicating. So again, that's what I really want to stress to the parents. Like, look, communicate. This is why I can do it. This is why I won't do it. And so the interaction with the students is important. All right. So let me share.
Can I share something?
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, one of the other things that I always talk to the parents that I work with about is getting the children involved in like sports or clubs.
Mm-hmm.
And I am always looking for things like, you know, they can sign up for whatever sport. They can run. All they need is shoes. And if they become good runners, they will provide the shoes for them, you know, things like that. Because I say they will find a connection with a group and they have to pass their classes. And then you get to spend time by going to watch them play. And it's something else that you can talk about.
Mm-hmm, exactly. That's good.
So that's another interaction thing. So they get to meet some of the coaches, some of their friends, you know, some of the friends from school, the people they travel with, they get to know places and then you talk about it, you know.
Yeah,
so
exactly. That's good. That's good. And that builds on, you know, the collaboration piece as well, you know, with them being a part of a group and whatnot. So let's look at this, the expectations that we have. Well, here's the thing. So let's talk about this. I wanted to make sure to hit on this. So the interaction piece is important, right? We talked about the communication piece, but there's still this myth, right? And so research will show that there's a myth, there's a lie. The myth is that, man, you know, because of my lack of education, I can't help my student, or I can't be a positive force in their life. I can't positively impact. The myth is like, well, you know, I don't, you know, they're bringing home this homework and I don't understand it, you know, and so I can't be a positive force. But however, research will show that that's just a myth, because what's more important, and these are 4 things that I want to make sure that parents understand, what's more important, it goes back, there it is, the communication of what you're expecting from them academically. Like, look, even if you don't know, this is what I expect. I expect you to do well. You know, I expect you to make sure that you're communicating with the teacher if you don't understand. So it's those expectations that are being verbally communicated, okay? Because you can't expect somebody to do something if you don't communicate that with them. So research shows that if parents would just communicate expectations, academic expectations, that they can still be a positive impact in the life of their child. Then it's the communication of the value of education. You talked about that, right? Like that great story that she gave in terms of like, look, there's a value of education. You're going to get paid more. Your life won't be as hard if you go to education. So it's communicating that, because again, as I mentioned early, it's not, we can't just think that they're just going to see that. Not now, not when they're being pulled in so many different directions. So it's communicating the value of education. The third thing to do, to be a positive force, to be a positive influence, is to stimulate their aspirations, okay? It's not saying, well, you can't do that. You can't be a doctor. You can't be an engineer because of this. We don't have any money. It's not saying any of that, because so many times I think that we kill our kids' dreams because we set the expectations low on them. But if we would just stimulate their aspirations, that's how we can be a positive impact. And then number 4, it's making the preparations and the plans for the future. It's making sure that we take advantage of the resources, right? One of the things that that Elizabeth talked to me today about was the initiative, right? To make sure that, hey, all parents are involved in the meetings, not just the migrant meetings, but being present at as many meetings as possible. So getting those resources, information, you know, scholarships. I mean, there are scholarships out there, and sometimes the students don't get it because they just don't go and get that information. So those are the four things that, regardless of a parent's lack of education, right? Regardless of what grade, the highest grade that they completed, they can still be a positive influence in the life of their students. So what does it boil down to? It's about expectations, not excuses. Expectations, not excuses. That's, to me, that's what it boils down to, because we can make excuses all the time, but at the end of the day, it's about expectations. What is it that I'm expecting from my son, from my daughter? What is it that I'm expecting from my students? What is it that I'm expecting from myself? And so that's one of the reasons why I started this presentation with, hey, what I do as a parent is important. And I truly believe that. For me, you know, I'll just be personal with you guys and just let you know, like, I can go and I can speak and I can do all these things, but the greatest thing that I'm going to ever do is be a father and be that positive force in the life of my daughter. You know, if I fail at that, then it doesn't matter what other accolade I get. It's about making sure that I draw out, like I said, that I draw out that potential from her, and she sees that she's capable and she's more than powerful to become whatever it is that she works hard for. So it's about expectations, not excuses. Now, I want to do something with y'all. Okay, so I'm gonna skip over some slides because I want to make sure to do this activity. Okay, because I think it's important. All right. So does everybody have a pencil? Yes. Yes. Okay. So with here, if we had like more time, I'd break this down. So number one, what does it mean? Expectations, no excuses. So let me just quickly go through this. Number one, it means I define my expectations, clearly define my expectations. This is what I mean by I want you to do good in school, because you could tell the student, I want you to do good in school, but you know, they can take it a totally different way. Well, I passed, right? I made a 70. That's good. No, clearly define your expectations. All right. Number two, communicate them clearly and constantly. It's not enough to just tell them at the beginning of the year, hey, I want you to do good. It's constantly being on them. It's constantly talking to them about it. Number three, asking them questions frequently. Hey, what's going on at school? Tell me what's going on. What did you learn? One of the things that I do with my daughter every day after school, like, tell me 3 things that you learned. You know, at first the question was like, what did you learn at school? And she was like, nothing. I'm like, no. I need you to be more specific. So that was my fault, because I was asking closed-ended questions. I needed to ask open-ended questions. So I'm like, tell me 3 things that you did, okay? And recess can't be one of them either. So making questions, you know, frequently about things about school. All right. And then number 4, revising and reinforcing the expectations. Okay. So when we talk about expectations, those are things that you can do to make sure, like, look, we're not going to settle for excuses. If we have to revise some expectations, then we'll do that. Okay. But this is what I want to talk about. Okay. So tus creencias son importantes. Your beliefs are important. I hit on that at the beginning, because I truly believe that our beliefs influence our actions. Okay. So let's do this. One of the beliefs sometimes is that, hey, you know what? Our life is not going to get better. I read a story yesterday, and it talked about, I don't know if you guys have heard, if you ladies, excuse me, have heard about the word gap, right? So there's this, you know, word gap, like, I think it's like 30,000 words, you know, depending on, you know, income level. So if you come from a more higher income bracket, from a family in a higher income bracket, then by the time you reach, you know, kindergarten, you've been exposed to more words. But if you come from a low income family, then you haven't been exposed to as many words. And so the story goes that the teacher was working in a low income school, and most of the time when he would give his students, you know, writing assignments, you know, they couldn't express themselves because of the lack of vocabulary, right? They don't know how to express themselves. So in terms of what do you want to do, they didn't know how to express themselves. But he gave them that prompt. The prompt was like, okay, tell, you know, how do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? Visualize your life in 10 to 15 years. And so, well, you give something like that, but majority of the time, you know, students will think and dream and have these things. And so, yeah, he was walking around, and he noticed that some of them wrote they wanted to be, you know, basketball players. They wanted to be, you know, doctors, teachers. Okay. But he got to one student, and one student didn't write anything down. And he's like, hey, what's up? Like, why haven't you written anything down? He's like, well, I don't know what to write. He's like, well, just think about it. This is this visualization. You just think about what it is that you feel that you want to do, and you'll be able to do it. And the student told him, why should I do that? Why should I dream? Because it's not going to happen anyways. You see that belief right there? The belief that why should I even dream? Why should I even try? And believe it or not, we get students like that all the time that walk into our campus because their beliefs. And it all starts right here. If I can just change my mind, I can change the game. And so I want to do this activity. Okay, so everybody has a pencil.
AC,
Yes.
can I share something really quick?
Yeah, for sure.
With our migrant, and it happened to Elizabeth and I with a student a few years back, and he told us, when we expressed the importance of an education, and we are all about it. So we're inside the home, and the student said, why should I continue my education? Why should I, and I say this because we have district participants joining us today, and we stopped and we didn't know what to say. He told us, why should I continue getting my education when I graduate, the type of job I'm gonna get, they don't even ask for my ID. They won't even ask. So tell me why. And so, and I remember looking at Elizabeth like, what do we tell him? How do we but it wasn't until, and he was gonna drop out, and we came up Christmas to the service center during our break to talk to him and to his parents and the teacher, the superintendent, was superintendent or principal? Was principal. And Elizabeth shared with them, if you stick it out through this end of the semester, you'll get to go on a leadership camp to Washington, D.C., and we'll pay for it. We'll pay for it all. And Elizabeth always does, in the district, she puts a little jar of money on the teacher's workroom, put some money in here so he could, buy souvenirs. When we went to go pick it up from this district, there was not one single penny in that jar. And they shared with us, he's horrible. Like we don't think he deserves to go. And we were just floored by it. Well, he came back a different person. And just what he learned through that, he graduated this year. And the importance of how one person, Elizabeth, telling him, we will do this for you if you finish, and you will see the importance of an education. How it just changed the way his thinking. I know a lot of the times, maybe as an educator, you're thinking, why is he acting up? Or why is he, and you're right, he didn't see beyond that.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing that, Monica. Yeah, he didn't see beyond that. And that happens a lot, because of what's going on in terms of the beliefs that are being passed down. And so I want to do this activity. All right. So let me share my screen real quick. So again, one of the things I want to let the parents know, let the students know, they can prosper. In fact, they can prosper because, we live in this country, and as crazy as what's going on right now, 2020 has been a crazy year, right? I always tell my students that, look, here's the thing why people will go through 3, 4, or weeks and months to come to the United States, because the United States practices social mobility. Now, social mobility is a sociological term that means that in this country, you have the ability to move upward or downward, depending on your choices and depending on what you achieve. But I think it's so important because we talk about education, right, Monica? You're talking about education, the importance of it, and being able to visualize. Well, here's the visual right here: social mobility. That you have the ability to improve your situation if you so want to. You have it because of your choices, because of education, because of your job, because of your income. All these factors can make sure that you move upward in society. Okay, so let's do this. All right, so I'm going to say a couple of statements, and if you have on a piece of paper, all you need to do is just jot the number down. Okay, don't write the whole sentence. All right, so because I've had people like, no, I'm going to write the whole sentence. No, don't write the whole sentence. If the number applies to you, you just write it down. You just put number 1 down. Okay, so on a sheet of paper, you're just going to write the number. Okay, so let's do a practice one. All right, so number 1 would be, I like to eat tacos. If you like to eat tacos, you would write number 1 on your piece of paper. All right, we're good? You guys understand that? Yeah? Yes?
Like
okay.
100.
Well, you just write 1. You just write the number that it applies to. All right, so here we go. Number 1. When you were a kid, you never had to share a room. If that statement applies to you, you write number 1 down. So as a kid, you never had to share a room, meaning you had your own room from the very get-go. Okay? So that's number 1. That applies to you, write number 1. All right, number 2. You have lived in a house with 3 or more bathrooms. Okay? If that number applies to you, you write down number 2. All right, are y'all with me? Okay, so number 2, if you lived in a house, if you have lived or live in a house with 3 or more bathrooms, you write number 2, okay? Number 3, when you were a kid, you never lived in an apartment. So when you were a kid, you never lived in an apartment. If that statement applies to you, you write number 3. All right. Number 4, my family has a summer home or owns another home. Okay, so you have 2 homes. All right. We're good?
What number was that?
That was number 4. Number 4 is my family has a summer home or another home. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Does RV count as another home?
You know what? I'm going to let you decide that. All right. Number 5, you've never worked in a fast food restaurant before. You've never worked in a fast food restaurant. If that applies to you, you'll write number 5 down. Okay. Number 6, you will one day receive an inheritance from your family. There's going to be a will that's going to leave you land, money. So you're expecting that. Okay. So it's either bills or wills. All right. So it's either or, right? All right. Number 7, you've never had to work on Christmas or Christmas Eve, because those traditionally are holidays where all businesses close, right? So you've never had to work Christmas Eve or Christmas. All right. Now we're on number 8. Y'all still with me? Okay. Number 8. No one in my family has ever been in jail. Now, we're Latinos, so I know that's going to encompass a lot. So if you just want to stick with your immediate family, that's fine. But number 8, no one in your family has been in jail. Okay. Now, don't be counting your third cousin and stuff. Like, no, it's just like, no one in your family has been in jail. Okay. Number 9, you've always had health insurance. Okay. You've always had health insurance. So we're not talking about Vicks when you got sick and your mom's like, look, I can't take you to the doctor. All right. That was my mom, by the way. All right. Number 10, you've gone out of the country. You've traveled out of the country to a place where you don't have family. So if you're Mexican, if you have family in Mexico and you went to Mexico to see them, that doesn't count. I'm talking about you've traveled somewhere out of the country where you don't have family. All right. That's number 10. Okay. Number 11, you have stocks and bonds in your name. Okay, that's number 11. We got 5 more, excuse me. All right, ladies. Again, I'm being gender biased. I'm so sorry, but you've bought and worn shoes that cost more than $125. If that applies to you, that you've bought and worn shoes that cost more than $125, you write down number 12. So those Manolo Blahniks, right? Yeah, okay. There you go.
What if you got them on sale?
What do you got them at TJ Maxx? No, they got to be more than 125. Number 13, you've never shopped with food stamps before. You've never shopped with food stamps before. That's number 13. Okay. Number 14, you've never had to work a job that involves working the night shift. Okay. Again, traditionally, that's a shift that nobody wants to work. So you've never worked a job that involves working at night, the night shift. All right, we have two more. In my lifetime, I've had a brand new car. Okay, so you bought a brand new car. You went to the dealer, brand new car. Okay, that's number 15. And here's the last one. Okay, you've never lived in a neighborhood that you or your peers or other people considered unsafe. Okay, you've never lived in a neighborhood that people are like, they're scared to go into that neighborhood. All right, so that's number 16. All right, so what I want you to do now, I want you to count how many statements you jotted down. I don't want you to add the numbers. I had a participant one time try to add the numbers and like, no. Like this isn't math class, so don't add the numbers. I just want you to add how many numbers you jotted down, okay? All right, so I'll give you a couple seconds to do that. All right. Did anybody have 16? So you guys can do a reaction too. You know, if you don't want to show your face, it's okay. You can do a reaction, just, you know, click on there, give a thumbs up or a clap. So nobody had 16. Okay. What about 15? 14? 13? Okay. What about 12? Did anybody have 11? 10? All right, Leslie. Okay, Leslie, 10. Thank you, Leslie. All right.
Guilty at 10.
Okay, Robin, 10. All right, very good. Anybody else? Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Leslie. What about 9? Okay, 9, Carol. Okay, thank you, Carol. 8? Okay. 7? Okay, Krista, thank you. Okay, 6. Okay. And we're going to stop right there. So, Corden, we have 14 participants right now. Well, 13, 14 including me, but 13. We have 4 of you who had more than 7 or more. You know, obviously you didn't have 16, but, you know, between 7 and 10 of the statements that applied to you. So what I just read to you were statements of privilege. And here's why I do this activity. And because when you do this activity in a setting, right, and obviously it's kind of different because we're meeting virtual, but it's okay. You get to see that, and I love doing this because you'll see it, whether it's a conference room or whether it's a lecture hall or whether it's an auditorium, that you're surrounded by people who maybe have had more privilege than you, or you're surrounded by people who maybe haven't been as privileged. And sometimes you don't know, because just by basing it on appearance or basing it on what they wear, on how they talk, how they communicate, you would never know somebody's story. So I did this one time in the training. And this is kind of, sometimes it's difficult to talk about, right? Like what kind of feelings are you feeling when you share with your neighbor? Because if we were in a group setting right now, I would say, hey, turn to your neighbor and tell your neighbor how many you had. And so what if you had 10 and your neighbor had 1? How do you think that would make you feel? And so it's real, because it's right there in front of you that, man, here I am complaining about my life, and yet I have 10 and this person has 1. And so back to my story. Did this in a training. It was quiet, because again, these are topics that people don't want to talk about, but you know what, they're necessary, because it just shows that, you know, I did this in a group of educators, that even in a group of educators who are attending a training because they want to get better, they're attending a training because they want to be able to help their students that even in a training in a classroom like that, you had people who come from different backgrounds, just like our students. And so again, it was quiet. And then finally, someone spoke up. She was like, you know what? I had to shop with food stamps one time. She's like, I got pregnant when I was 17 years old and my family disowned me. She's like, but you know, the beautiful thing, AC, is that now 31, I'm teaching. Like, I get that. That's part of my story. And so, yeah, you know, at first it kind of makes you feel kind of bad that you had to jot that down. But then you start thinking, man, look how far I've came. And so that's the beauty of education. The endless possibilities that it can open up for you, that you don't have to stay where you're at. If you're not happy where you're at, you can get an education, you can get a degree, you want to be an engineer, you want to be a doctor, you want to own your own business. You can do all those things, but you have to put in the work. And so that's one of the things that I want to stress to parents is that, look, you can prosper. Like, it's there. Is it going to be harder for some? Yeah, because some of us, we're starting 30 feet behind the starting line. And some of us, man, they're way ahead. But when it all boils down to is what are you willing to put in? And so I want to hear your thoughts. What are some of your thoughts as we did this, as you were maybe writing, you know, the statement, whether it applied to you? I want to hear your thoughts because we're about to finish up here. And I want to share just a tad bit of my story.
I was answering like for me, and then I was answering for my daughter.
Okay.
She had a lot more than I did.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, like I struggled going to college because I was actually the first in my family to go to school, to higher education. And after me, and I'm including all my cousins, after me, everybody went to college. Everyone before me didn't. And so I came from the field. I used to work hoeing cotton all summers. And so my mom said, you know, you're going to go to college. And I was like, okay, great. And my cousins are like, college? Are you serious? You can't even afford it. But I went. And so that's, you know, part of my story. But that's why I love this program, the Migrant program, is because we can help our students understand that there is a possibility. You have to work hard. It's not going to be easy. And then, you know, it'll work out, but you do have to work really hard. And I'm sure that a lot of us can attest to that. There's been different, you know, struggles throughout, but it's worth it. I would do it all over again.
Sure. All right. Thank you so much for sharing. Appreciate that. Anybody else?
Same thing with Elizabeth. Right now, I know we're doing it virtually, but I'm in a home surrounded by a lot of privileged children.
Yeah.
I had Angel over here, my 12-year-old, his number was high. And, but then I made me think as a parent, maybe that's why we struggle with our children. You know, we do want to give them more, but now they're privileged. And so we might like bump heads because I'm thinking like, why are you doing that? You had so much more than what I had. Maybe there's that battle between parents at the moment and their students.
That's true.
Even here.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Anybody else?
I think I only had a 4, but I feel the same. One of the things, like for us, I'm the youngest of 10. I was undocumented for 26 years. My papers were in, but the government took forever to process. And so we struggled a lot, you know. I loved going to school, and when I wasn't able to continue back then, I dedicated my time to reading, and I read a lot to my children. So that changed things.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, Ramona. I appreciate that. And so that's the power of education. And to be honest with you, that's the power of our story. You know, I'm going to end with this. So let me just show you all a picture of my beautiful mom. So that's actually me as a middle school kid. You see that? Look at that. Like, look, you see how old the picture is. Anyway, so there's my mom. So that's my mom when I graduated from high school. So yeah, I don't know what's up with those sideburns, but that's my mom. And I want to finish with this. So my mom, like I said, she immigrated to the United States in the 1970s. My mom grew up with 5 other siblings, and my mom grew up poor, which is the reason why she couldn't continue her education after fifth grade, because in her country during that time, if your parents didn't have money or they didn't come from a wealthy family, then the highest grade that you could complete for free was 5th grade. And so my mom had to work, from 11 years old on, she had to work. And I remember her telling me, what she did, because again, we all have a story, right? And I remember for a college class, the assignment was, I need you to interview a parent. And so, like I said, my father didn't live and wasn't around, but my mom was there. So I interviewed my mom, and that was the first time I ever heard of her struggles in terms of growing up. I mean, I knew her struggles as a single mom. I knew her struggles, in terms of what I saw during my childhood, but I never actually knew what she went through. And so she shared with me that she would wash other people's clothes. And so that's something that I share when I speak to students, something that I share when I speak to educators, because I'm not ashamed, because that's me. That's my beginning. Even though I didn't experience that, that's where my mom came from. And so I understand that. I understand how I'm able to, be here in the United States and be a doctoral candidate and be able to have the things that I had. And even though I didn't grow up privileged, my mom worked hard to make sure that I had what she didn't have, and that was opportunity. And so I say that because I always make it a point to reiterate to the parents that, look, my mom, 5th grade education, my mom who doesn't even speak English that well, even now, right? She's been in the United States since like 1972, doesn't speak English that well. She can defend herself, right? She knows how to say baby. But other than that, the role that she played in who I am is so vital, because she was there. Because I saw my father leave. I saw my father leave and never come and see me and never care about me and never ask about my education and never worry about that. But I saw my mom, who busted her butt, who worked 2 to 3 jobs to make sure that we had what we needed. Maybe not what we wanted, but what we needed. And so I want to tell parents that what you do is important. I wouldn't be who I am right now if it wasn't for my mom. And so that picture that I just showed you was my high school graduation. I actually graduated from high school in 3 years. And the reason I graduated in high school in 3 years, we talk about resources and information. One of my counselors came to me and she said, hey, you have enough credits that if you take English 3 in the summer, you can graduate in 3 years. And guess what? The state of Texas will give you $1,000 if you're an early graduate. And I'm like, sign me up. $1,000? Heck yeah. And so I graduated in 3 years. But let me tell you a picture about that. And let me tell you a story about that picture. That morning, my father came to the house. Hadn't seen him in years. He came to the house, and my father's, he's been a drug addict for most of his life. And when he came to the house, I knew he was on something. So he came in banging on the door, wanting to talk to my mom. And I was older now, right? Because I saw my father physically abuse my mom growing up. In fact, those are some of the memories that I have as a kid. And he's wanting to talk to my mom. He's like, "Don't listen to my mom. Bring your mom out here." And I'm like, "No, that's not going to happen." So this is graduation day. This is one of like the best days of my life up to that point. And I said, "Look, you're not going to talk to my mom, not in this condition." And he says, "All right, you know what? That's fine." I said, I want y'all out of this house. So here's the deal with that. At this point, he had every right to say that, because when he left, the house was still in his name. And so he had every right to kick us out. And he said, if your mom doesn't come up with $10,000 by next week, you guys are out of this house. And so that day, I couldn't believe that my father didn't ask about, hey, you're graduating today. I couldn't believe that my father didn't say, hey, you know what? I'm so proud of you. I couldn't believe that. I was hurt. I didn't feel good. And yet, when I graduated and walked out of that tunnel, walked outside and saw my mom, I gave her the biggest hug. And with tears streaming down her face, with tears streaming down my face, I said, "Mom, thank you. Thank you for being a part of my life." And I said, Mom, this isn't how our story ends. This isn't the last graduation. This is not how our story ends. So I say that because, man, my mom played an integral role in my life. And my hope and prayer is that one day when my daughter Isabella graduates from high school, from college, is that she'll be able to say, you know what, Mom, you know what, Dad, you guys played an integral role in my life too. Because as parents, like I said at the beginning, no one's ever going to fight for their kids. No one's ever going to be an advocate better than you. So thank you all so much. I hope this has been beneficial and helpful. And I enjoyed hearing your stories. I enjoyed, just, bouncing off just ideas and just information with you guys. So thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you for believing in me back in January and reaching out to me. We're here, 6 months later. Who knew we were going to go through a pandemic? But we're here. So thank you so much.
AC, thank you. We appreciate it. We're so excited. Everyone has really enjoyed this training. And I hope that the school districts can take this back and utilize this at their campuses, and help parents, because they are vital. They can help us help their students. We as educators pour so much into our children, and we need parent support.
For sure, definitely. And they play a big role. We know that. All right, any questions?
If anyone has any comments or questions, you can feel free to just unmute yourself or write it in the chat, please.
No questions.
Thank you, Carol. Appreciate it.
No questions, but I wrote a lot of notes that I'm going to be sharing with our parents.
Awesome. Very good. Awesome. Thank you. And also my information in terms of like just social media and stuff is I'm at AC Cristales. I'll put it in the chat. So you can find me there. I'll do some motivating. I have a podcast as well where I interview educators. So that's good. I'm going to start doing it in Spanish because I have a mom that actually said, hey, can you do it in Spanish? I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it. So that's coming here probably in August, because I'm going to take July off and work on my dissertation because I'm so close. So I'm going to work in my dissertation in July and then come back in August with podcasting for the new season. But yeah, so just if you guys want to follow me, appreciate it. Appreciate your support again. Thank you for providing me this opportunity.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, AC. And I also want to say that tomorrow he'll be a keynote speaker, and Leslie's going to talk about that just for a minute.
Yeah. So we're super excited about tomorrow with our STEAM Expo. It was crazy fun today. It was, having 200 people on the Zoom was a new experience, but it was good. So sorry for all the background. We're on our way. We got baseball going on tonight too. So talking about those experiences, those parent experiences, right, that we give our kids. So, but AC, we're super excited about tomorrow morning for our STEAM Expo and what the message that you'll bring to our participants. They heard about STEAM and the STEAM jobs that are in Texas, that are available in Texas with like a 2-year degree or less.
Oh, cool.
Like that's amazing opportunities for our students. And so, they don't have to do, like, what can they do to help make their lives better? Even with, not even 4-year college degrees, just there's so much STEM opportunity in the state of Texas alone. So they heard that. So that paired with what you're going to bring tomorrow is going to be awesome for our teachers.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to it as well.
Thank you all. We'll see you later.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.